I finally published an article that's been sitting in my draft queue for months, and it was an article that just never felt like it was done. And it's using data to design safer schools based on information from thousands of different shootings over the last 60 years. It's how you can use that data to design a safer campus. But right now, really the prevalent campus design is fortification. Taking the attributes of the medieval castle, the walls, the small windows, the fortified structure, and trying to apply that to schools. But this overlooks that European monarchs stopped building castles hundreds of years ago because castles don't work well. The adversary always has the advantage against defined defenses. You build a 10-foot wall and somebody's going to bring a 12-foot ladder. And there's an excellent paper that was written by Homeland Security expert Jack Anderson. It's called The Fortress Problem. And it talks about how fortresses concentrate risk. Fortification concentrates your risk. Even though it looks like strength, it's actually liabilities. And that a grand design for security doesn't produce grand security. You actually need less planning, more improvisation, less uniformity, because it's that randomness that actually creates your ability to prevent an attack. Another issue with campus design right now is that there have been theories that are completely misapplied. So crime prevention by environmental design is brought up in campus design and active shooter prevention. But if you go back to the 70s and you read the original paper about this by Clark, where he defined situational crime prevention, it was based on a study of residential burglaries. And things like lowering the height of the shrubs or increasing sight lines or adding lighting can make a house less attractive as a target for a burglar. Now, this theory was taken and studied for violent crime, and there is no empirical evidence from dozens of studies over the last 40 years that environmental crime design does anything to reduce your violent crime rate. In fact, changes to a residential building don't even decrease overall property crime. They just displace it to a different, more attractive target. And a big part of this and why there's no impact on violent crime is because a property crime is based on opportunity. A violent crime is usually an offender that has a direct relationship with the victim. So you're not going to suddenly have a change in that relationship based on the height of the shrubs around the building. But thinking about how to design a better campus in the future, an open campus follows exactly those recommendations in Jack Anderson's paper. Because the fortress fails due to rigidity and predictability, an open campus is flexible and adaptable and creative. And a problem that's happened in the last few years, fortified campuses or single point of entry campuses mean that students are coming in and out of the same doors at predictable times, and this has led to ambushes. So in the picture here, just as a security guard opened the door and a student was exiting, somebody was waiting outside and shot both of them. But if you have an open campus that students are going in and out of many different spaces at different times, those opportunities for an ambush are greatly reduced. Another thing that the data shows is that every single room, especially classrooms, need to have two ways out. And this is so students can get out of every classroom as quickly as possible. If there are two doors, if there's an assailant at one door, there's always a second to get out. And tragically, just this week, the Sandy Hook survivors were graduating from high school. And in an interview that's linked here on Good Morning America, one of the students who survived from the classroom where all the other kids were killed, he ran immediately. And it's getting out of schools, not staying inside the schools, that saves lives. And the data shows that. Because even though 70% of shootings have happened outside, twice as many victims have been shot when they're inside the school. And this is because once you're inside a confined space, it's hard to get out, and a shooter has the advantage. So what you need to do is have 2 exits from every building, and then also think about out-of-the-box solutions. Like when there was an assailant with 600 rounds of ammo and an AR-15 at CVPA High in St. Louis, the students jumped out of third-story windows to get away. If you had evacuation slides like an airplane, there could be ways to get kids out of classrooms in multi-story buildings very quickly. And the importance of getting out of the classroom is based on 230 deliberate planned attacks at schools. The majority of them started and ended inside the same room. It's not a common circumstance for the shooter to be going from room to room, roaming throughout the school. Most of these begin and end in the same room. And if you can get kids out of that room, you can get them to safety. Another thing that the data shows is that overwhelmingly parking lots are the most common location for a shooting to take place on campus. And parking lots also create a big challenge for school security because you can have all of these prohibited items that are kept inside cars. And if they're in a car, it can be difficult for police to get a warrant to search or easily screen cars for weapons. So in the campus of the future, maybe all students take buses and public transit and ride shares and bikes and scooters to school. So you don't have a parking lot at all. If there's no parking lot, there's nowhere for a gun to be stored in a vehicle. You're taking away the most common area for a shooting to occur. And with that, as we're imagining the future, maybe in the future kids don't have backpacks. They don't take anything to school, and this allows for frictionless screening. Because when you think about it, it's 2024. Why are kids carrying stacks of textbooks to school the same way that they did in the 1950s, when now you can have every single file and assignment and reading on a tablet? And the kids don't even need to carry that tablet with them back and forth. The tablet can be right there in the classroom. I did a survey of parents to find out different things about school security. One of those was how many items are kids carrying to school every day? And kids have cell phones and laptops and water bottles and textbooks and notebooks and lunch boxes and keys. And that ends up creating huge security lines at schools. So if you can cut down the number of items and you can have better systems for screening, you can make sure that a weapon is never on the campus. Now, a couple other items that I'll cover, you can read the article to see all about them, is thinking about evacuating campuses as not just getting out of buildings or getting to a spot on the campus, but rather getting students completely away from the campus and to community members. And this happened at the Covenant School spontaneously when one of the teachers evacuated the classroom to a neighbor's house, and instead of those kids being traumatized, all they remember from that incident is that they had a nice lady who showed them cartoons and gave them snacks. And finally, there's an incredible amount of opportunity to use technology and AI-powered systems with everything from facial recognition to a smart campus to being able to recognize both an assailant with a weapon, or programs like ChatGPT-O can already recognize things like a person choking. Being able to, if a teacher is alone in a classroom and they're choking, you could immediately have an automated system that calls 911. So I think with this campus of the future, we need to stop thinking about them as medieval fortresses, stop misapplying things like crime prevention by environmental design, because that's just about property crime, and instead look at the data, realize students need to get away as quickly as possible, and they need to have flexible, adaptable, open spaces to do that. And that's optimal for learning, and it creates the safest environment if there's an emergency. Thank you very much.